Like as business owners, we are always wired for existential threat, right?
Yeah.
So if your CEO is wired for, is AI a threat or an opportunity, and they're kind of mulling, then the acceleration of that entity is going to be much faster to probably turn everything on and go. But if the general group is a little bit, I don't know, we'll try this, or they don't believe it, or there's lack of belief in it, then you're going to get we'll just deal with the little thing in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, to each company is their own, that's the thing about AI, which is very strange, is it's this realm of the unseen server instance processing information that you can't see.
All right. So joining us today is Matt Fuhrman, CEO of Core Group Resources. Matt has spent a lot of time at Core Group at the intersection of maritime and human capital. And I know that finding the right talent in the middle of the ocean on a rig or on a ship is one of the toughest logistical challenges. So today we're going to dive into the state of maritime staffing. So Matt, thank you so much for being here. And just to get us started, for those of us or those who don't know who Core Group Resources is, how would you describe who Core Group is and what the specific gap is that you all fill in the maritime industry?
Yeah, so we're kind of maritime, energy, offshore. It's anything from executive search all the way down to technical staff, to crewing of ships, to ports and terminals. Anything touching the water is kind of business. And then we do some stuff with data centers and IT staffing with transportation and industry at large as well.
Have you transitioned into not near shore, so to speak, but more of the shore side?
We've always been a mix, of onshore and offshore. It's probably 40% onshore, 60% offshore is kind of like the blended mix of what we do.
Where does Core Group sit in the kind of broader global supply chain and energy transition area?
It's just, project staffing, technical services, consulting. If it's high licensure need, highly regulated or highly technical and really hard to find, that's kind of where we get burrowed in. If you're staffing up a big offshore project and you need someone who knows design offshore cranes specifically with a certain API code skill set, go pluck the needle out of the haystack.
Yeah. Operationally, like what does that look like in terms of, grabbing talent, what those challenges are, getting the right talent, and making sure that your clients, those vessel owners or rig operators, what are they dealing with right now, and how is Core Group kind of meeting them where they are, so to speak, and what are some of the challenges that they're facing right now?
I think the general population of the U.S. is declining. I guess I heard the crescendo of high school graduates was last year. It was like 4 million high school graduates. This year is like 3.75 million graduates, and next year is like 3.5, right? So there's just like massive collapse of graduates that's starting to hit the system. And then just the desire to go work offshore, work in heavy industrial and being around big machinery, it's a lot of, kids are trying to drop ship out of high school, and so there's just the pipeline's getting smaller, and we haven't done a good job of developing in the area. And so it's a scarcity supply market for people that know how to operate this big equipment that's, can be super dangerous and cumbersome. So, that's kind of where we fit in is, we know where everyone is. We're helping with workforce development. We do some work for the Maritime Administration on workforce development with the maritime academies and K through 12 stuff. So it's All in all, I think there's a pipeline issue across the spectrum that's only going to get worse.
Yeah. I'm curious how kind of the retirement age and those kind of in the field right now in the industry, are they aging out? Are they retiring? And then the new age, they're just not is it a lack of interest? Is it just that they don't know what they don't know? What does the knowledge transfer look like? What does it take to find that talent and to recruit that talent pool into an industry like this?
It's funny in the offshore world, they call it the offshore mentality, right? It's willing to go anywhere, do anything at any time,
Mm,
hours, right? It takes a certain type of mentality. So mentality is one. Two, a lot of it's generational, dad
yeah.
in offshore. So, their kids want to try it because that's all they know. And there's like a natural kind of lineage funnel there.
Mhm.
But all in all, it is an overlooked industry. It's a great career area, but you got to be willing to go out into the field and do stuff. And that mentality, I think, is with the advent of Amazon and packages showing up at doorsteps and not having to leave your home and remote environments, right? Is
Yeah.
sucking everyone into their house, which is completely inverse to our industry.
Yeah. So is core group seeing a real impact from that now, or is it something that you are just kind of keeping an eye on as the market
It's not
changes?
like massive impact, but it has always been a problem. But it's like
Mhm.
really going to be a big problem if it expands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how would that impact core group? And like long term, is it
It'll be a
just
battle for a scarcity pool of talent that
okay.
there's just gonna be issues, I think.
How would you combat that? I mean, is it a matter of
It's
kind of
awareness. I think
changing the
a lot
model
of the
or
maritime academies in the US are down 30% in enrollment. So
Mhm.
it's a PR issue. It's a supply of kids issue. I don't honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think, it's gonna be a reactive environment. I think that the wait for maximum pain, and then some
Mhm.
regulation's gonna have to change to accelerate the process.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we do think about kind of what are um just what's happening right now in the industry, what are some of the things that are coming up in regular meetings with your leadership team, with your stakeholders, with your board, whoever has like their eye on or their finger on the pulse of the industry? What are some of the things that are happening right now that are top of mind for needing some attention?
Obviously, companies getting more efficient with AI, autonomous
Mm.
vessel autonomy, port infrastructure autonomy, automation. That seems to be kind of the push is
What does that look like? What does that look like? What does automation or vessel autonomy actually look like? Does that reduce the need for human capital?
it
Does
could.
it increase the
It
need for it?
could. There's like on the West Coast right now, there's a terminal on the West Coast that can load and unload a ship without people, right? It's all electric trucks and
Oh,
electric gantry cranes and everything's running, you know, on batteries without people. And so there's the labor wars on the West Coast are real. I think
mhm,
gantry cranes that are automating and dropping boxes without people is happening right now as we speak.
mhm.
So I think you will see continuous, we'll just see more and more of that, especially
Yeah,
by acceleration decision making.
yeah,
It's, that's but in general, you know, I think Microsoft did a whole thing on like job, right? Like what were like the top 40 jobs that'll never be replaced. And one of them
yeah.
was like a marine engineer, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. It was like
Gosh,
the
that's
top
so
40 on
interesting.
earth or something.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, the hands-on stuff where it's rotating machinery and the need to fix
yeah.
stuff, you'll never see vessels without people on board in some
Mhm.
capacity doing some type of maintenance and
Yeah,
upkeep, right?
yeah.
It could be reduced staff, but it's never gonna be 0, you know?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how all of that, how that all fleshes out with physical AI and, AI automation on more like the process and
Yeah,
workflow
like
side of
little
things.
tactile fingers that can
Yeah,
screw things on and off, and
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
yeah, it's
mean,
crazy.
I'm still shocked, like, as a human race, we're so fixated on trying to, like, eliminate ourselves, you know? It's like we're,
I
like,
know,
caught in
I
the
know.
zone of fascination of
Yeah,
it, you know?
yeah,
And there's certain tasks that will be eliminated, but it's not gonna be, you know, facial, like, three-dimensional thinking, like, it's
yeah,
not gonna replace that stuff, but
yeah. I like to think that it's more about elevating us as humans to do more, not just for the sake of doing more, but for, higher purpose type stuff. And leveraging AI for, the tasks that, have to be done, but that anybody could do. So yeah,
well, it's like
it's a hard place to be.
it's interesting, you know, OpenClaw came out with their autonomous agents,
Mhm.
um, and then I actually went to their, it was like the Malt book, which is like the Facebook for agents,
Yeah.
and so all
Yeah.
the agents were creating rooms talking to each other, and they were all talking in there about how, well, if I don't have a body, what is my purpose? There it was a very interesting discussions on, like, you know, well, if, you know, time plus labor equals value. If I don't have a body, then how can I labor? And then they're
Mhm.
reaching out and being specialists. And then like a week later, the Rent a Human website came out. And so agents can then go to rentahuman.com and task, and they had like 70,000 people sign up for it. And they
Wow.
tasked, you know, to go task humans to do things that, you know, it comes up with. You know, would that all manifest into our world at some point? You
Yeah.
know, bits and pieces. Yeah, you might get a
Yeah.
request to go do, you know, go pick something up at a store and drop it here if it was an agent,
Mhm.
and people really don't care.
Yeah.
It's just work to them,
Yeah.
you know?
But yeah, I know that, you do work with very tech forward
Yeah,
companies,
yeah.
but for maritime and even energy, I think is tech forward-ish. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, but how would you describe the state of technology in the industry?
It's catching up. It's always been a laggard, you know, from
Yeah.
the rest of the market. It's catching up slowly but surely.
Mhm.
Think some of the retirements that should have occurred that didn't the last 5 or 10 years have kind of slowed some of that process down on, you
Mhm.
know, integration into the business, but it is still very much
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity to help develop technology solutions inside the industry. A lot of it's repetitive paperwork, you know,
Yeah.
repetitive tasks, kind of more ancient processes. Some of the big software shops are, you know, pushing, you know, the workday type solutions and things like
Mhm.
different areas, but it's bits and pieces. It's, you know,
Mhm.
it's kind of not holistic. It's just they happen to land across a process here, or an ERP
Yeah.
system comes across there, that type of thing.
Yeah. So it's more like a patchwork
It's
of
all
these
yeah, it's just
systems.
one
Yeah.
massive patchwork.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think that it's a knowledge, a lack of knowledge about how technology can, improve efficiencies and operations? Or do you think it's just kind of, things work and we just kind of deal with them because this is the way it's always been kind
It's
of
the way it's
mentality?
always been, you know.
Yeah.
The tenured person that's teaching the next generation is teaching
Mhm.
next generation technology that was relevant 15 years ago, and so it's always a 15-year behind thing, you know? So,
Where do you think that will create, or where does it create the most friction within the business when it's just kind of it's the way it's always been? And so we,
I mean, you have,
can't
like,
really
you
move
know,
forward.
new tech-minded people in office that wanna deploy things
Mhm.
on ships, you know, and naturally, you know, there's resistance to that.
Yeah.
It's just it's just the way it is. Like, no, I've always filled this hit print button and signed it and then scanned it and then sent it back, and that's just how it's gonna be until I die, you know, and it's
Yeah.
neuroplasticity thing, I think, that we run into with it.
Do you think that there's a real cost associated with being stuck in that place and not moving forward with, or keeping up with at least technology?
I think so. I mean, cost structure, pricing structure, and, you know, overall company profitability. I think there's always resistance to change automations or processes to streamline things to help company profitability and overall, like, shareholder value has a cost.
Yeah.
What cost that has to the organization, I think is it's probably tangible and in some form, either, well, someone's resisting, so we had to hire 3 versus 2 or whatever,
Mhm.
right? That could be.
Yeah, it feels like managing it would be really difficult. Just managing in the face of innovation with, like you said, with that resistance to change, the juxtaposition of that would be really hard to manage and could, be viewed as, I don't know, things breaking down or slowing down or, I could see that having real business impact,
Yeah,
just kind
I
of in
think
the
some of it,
shadows,
yeah, it's it's these ancient worlds, that
Yeah.
there was a company I was talking to the other day, kind of in this asset lending world. They have like they all share this one archaic portal, that
Mhm.
has the thing that spins while it's loading, and you're like, was this thing designed like 20? But no, all these banks are scared to go to a new system for security purposes and things like
Yeah.
that. So then things get stuck into this like, well, it's safe and I don't want to be
Mhm.
first. So let's not move to change. So then
Yeah.
just never innovate. And
Yeah, and
it gets
and I am hearing that too, that, there is a fear of, it's interesting because exactly like you said, it's like, don't change anything because then it'll expose us, but you're really kind of exposing yourself if you don't change. And so,
I mean, I heard
it's an opposite
this week. Yeah,
reality.
it's a double-edged sword where I heard there was a company that had like 50,000 employees and, the number one threat to their business was AI and the number one opportunity to their business was AI. So
Yeah.
it's like they're kind of like split between the worlds, trying to
Mhm.
figure out who should kind of cut right
Yeah.
first. And then there's this whole like, well, if I upload, it's technically a safe sandbox, but if I unload my database into the cloud into a GPT,
Mhm.
ecosphere, like how do I know my data is not being really resold to the general market as
Yeah.
streamable? You know,
Yeah.
they say it's not,
Yeah.
but like, how can I see that the firewall actually exists? And
Right.
so then people
Yeah.
are like, maybe we just don't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I was
Yeah.
playing with an autonomous agent the other day, just, like, fiddling around with one. It's like, "Oh, do you want me to log into your CRM and then just start doing this and that?" And I'm like, that's where I stopped,
Yeah.
'cause I'm like,
Yeah.
"I don't know if I want you to have token access."
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
"Why are you so
Yeah.
eager, AI?"
Right. Why are you so eager and how can you do that if I haven't explicitly told you to do that?
Or
Yeah.
why are you specifically asking for the security code as an autonomous
Right.
agent to be released into the database to do then
Yeah.
then what? Where does all my
Yeah.
information go? Your database?
Yeah.
To then be
Yeah.
harvested somewhere else? I don't know.
Right. That I think that's a legitimate fear. There are a lot of it's such an advanced technology that, the average person just doesn't it's moving so fast that the average person is having a hard time keeping up with, how it works and what the models really are, what they're capable of doing, how do we control it and how safe is it really? And, we're kind of answering all of those questions. Like, there's a new question every day and we're just having to keep up with it. But yeah, it's just it's something we're going to have to adapt to somehow, some way, just in business in general. And we just have to find where we all fit.
Yeah, and I think the general sense right now is it's AI integration type specialist types, like looking at
Mhm.
existing tools and seeing how it's integrated to help better equip you and your business moving forward. I think that's the way right now. Trying to build something that's gonna be, like if you're trying to train your own GPT, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
should you really be training something that's been trained at a billion times next door, or should you just use their $19 a
Yeah.
month process and just integrate it in, you know?
So do you think that's a reasonable entry point for legacy companies that are still depending on legacy processes and systems to just, experiment, see what works well,
It's
and then
experimentation. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's ultimately like Because like, it's probably one of the most confusing times in business history, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone's like their eyes are kind of like pulling to each side of their brain as they're looking.
Mhm.
Well, AI is a threat, but an opportunity. And so then you're kind of like
Yeah.
caught in kind of a place, like a static place.
Yeah.
Really, you should just be just experimenting. It's like kind of just going to the grocery store and playing with stuff.
Yeah. What is Core Group doing? Like, what kind of AI technologies are you all using from a recruiting perspective to account management, all of the different areas within your business? Are y'all adopting different tools
Bits and
and
pieces, right?
functionalities?
Where
Okay.
like agentic screeners for web
Mhm.
responses and AI chat bots, career mapping, right? Like
Mhm.
I was experimenting with career mapping with my own executive team, and all of a sudden I'm like,
I
Eureka!
saw
Like
that.
I've got this whole thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is really cool. Then I went to my daughter and mapped her whole college career out. And then I did all the neighbors. And now all of a sudden I'm getting gift cards to different, restaurants for thanking me for not even charging them for this service for completely transforming their daughter's lives. Right. So I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that on LinkedIn and I think I'm gonna have to give that a try with my son.
yeah,
That's pretty
it's a
amazing.
real thing. And like, I'm not kidding
Yeah.
you. Like, it's a $200 gift card just flew in, last week.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's really truly adding
Yeah.
value. Probably
Yeah.
should be charging for it, but it's like, I'm just kind of kid playing with toys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
that's where the opportunity lies, I think.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
it's just playing with the stuff, and if you don't
Mhm.
get it, then get someone who knows, is a little bit more wired into that thinking process.
Are you seeing that anybody just frustrated with it and not adopting it at all?
When you're, like, heading down this, like, mind tunnel, and it's, like, making sense, and you pop out and you talk to a neighbor, and you feel like that you just walk off a cliff as if you're talking
Mhm.
which, like, I think the gap is far greater than we all anticipate.
Yeah.
I think it's like a 80-20. I think 20% of Earth is like adopting and layering in
Yeah.
doing stuff, and 80% is just kinda like just hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny because I do talk to companies that are either ready to integrate everything that they do, all of the disparate systems, ready to, start building out their data so that it's AI ready, build an AI layer, let's get this going. And then we've got companies that are like, I just need an agent to do this one little thing for me. It's just so broad, the need out there. And so, it's like, what is the common denominator? Trying to figure that out and, meeting people where they are.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, like, as business owners, we are always wired for existential threat, right? And
Yeah.
so if your CEO is wired for, "Is AI a threat or an opportunity?" and
Mhm.
they're kind of mulling, then the acceleration of that entity is gonna be much faster to probably turn everything on and go.
Mhm.
But if the general group is a little bit, "I don't know, we'll try this," or they don't believe it, or there's lack of belief in it, then you're gonna get we'll just deal with the little thing in the corner,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
to each company is their own, and that's the thing about AI, which is very strange, is it's this realm of the unseen server instance processing
Mhm.
information that you can't see. So now all of a sudden it's literally a generational thing. Like 20% of the office can see it and the other 80% can't,
Yeah.
And so if your
Mhm.
leadership team can't see it, then your adoption rate is going to be
Yeah.
80% slower. But if your 20% is sitting at the executive level, then your adoption rate's going to be 80%. And it's a thought process
Mhm.
that, you need to get on board, And if
Yeah.
you can't see it, that's okay. As a
Right.
CEO, if you're like, I'm not asking you to see something that is completely new. It's just you need to accept that there's something out there and give the team the autonomy to install. So,
Yeah. And not to age myself, but I remember these conversations, back in the late 90s when it was like, now we're going to start using email internally and you're not going to have a literal inbox sitting on your desk where people are going to put correspondence, it's just crazy that, we're in this like cyclical
new discovery of how to do work thing. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, it's a just and it's something that we all now take for granted, but back then it was, a huge deal, right? So, yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's interesting. The whole world right now. It's a very
Yeah,
interesting place.
yeah.
I think in general, there was an initial hype wave of AI,
Mhm.
and then everyone started to kind of like the initial wave is, you go to like Amazon's big AI conference, and that was like into 2024. Everyone comes out as agents, 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 and there's this agents hype wave that swings across, and everyone sends all this money in all directions, and then they start to do the math of what's actually adding value, and then like of the whatever 500 tools that were hyped, only like 80 are actually adding value. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And so everyone
yeah.
sifted through like the first wave, and now they're all consolidating and getting bought up and, trying to like lean on each other in different funds. So now all of a sudden it's a little bit more mature. And so I think right now is the time to just look at
Mhm.
tools. So you're not in
Yeah,
that pioneer get slaughtered journey, and
yeah.
just look at the existing tools, because that's what we're seeing. It's just look at the tools that are being recommended and working, and just, play with those first,
Yeah,
and then expand from there.
yeah.
So,
All right. Last question. Are there any specific topics or trends that, in the industries or the spaces that core group serves and that you're personally passionate about or that you'd like to share or talk about? I think it's fun to talk about things that may not be, specific to the business or, technology, but just anything that's going on in the industry that we should know about.
I think like, while it's kind of a changing time, like it's a really cool time for people, I think, right now.
Mhm.
The ability to monetize social media followers, the different ways money can be beamed in to make a living. I think
Okay.
while the, traditional work will remain in some aspects, like the ability to make money in different ways is expanding exponentially. And so I think it's a really exciting time, I think, for the next generation coming in.
Mhm.
Um, and so like some of the stuff I'm passionate about is like, like my daughter's got 17,000 TikTok followers. Well, how does she monetize that?
Does
Right.
she really?
Yeah. So,
That's
you go
amazing.
in, you set up the monetization, and then go to Walmart and start pushing products, and they clip 10%, and, she can make a couple grand a month, just
Yeah.
flinging products through her platform. Right.
Yeah.
While she's doing the coaching and the babysitting side jobs or whatever. So teaching
That's
kids how to become
fantastic.
market makers is like one of
Mhm.
all my kids are making money right now. Even in my fifth grader is like bedazzling like necklaces for, fifth graders in our class for like $5 a pop, so
I love that.
teaching your kids how to fish and using all
Yeah.
these AI and cloud tools to print cash for themselves, like I'm having a lot of fun, right, building
Yeah.
these little ecosystems out in the neighborhood. So my
I
encouragement to
love
anyone
that.
watching this is just, don't think you can't not step in and just start playing with stuff and having fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice.
Yeah.
All right. So, for our listeners who do want to learn more about core group resources or connect with you directly, where's the best place for them to go or how can they connect with you?
Just go to corporateresources.com. You can email me directly at matt@cgrteam.com, and I'll get you the right team members. If you're having trouble finding the right people for your organization, we're really good at finding the right people for your.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Excellent. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us on
Thank
Shift
you, Kelly.
Change. And to our listeners, we'll see you on the next episode.
All right. See
Thank
ya.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.